Show is a dialogue between the host and the listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine and have Sean in studio. This is a show about what matters most in our life, our mind, our thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. Today, I will actually share an amazing research for you, and then I will introduce you to an app, ECT, by Robert Moylan, the author of Emotional Core Therapy, for free. Yes. And then I will be speaking with a veteran holistic physician, Dr. Bradley Nelson, who is one of the world's foremost expert on natural methods of achieving wellness. He has trained thousands of certified practitioners worldwide to help people overcome physical and emotional discomfort by releasing their emotional baggage. We will be talking about his best-selling book, The Emotion Code, providing step-by-step instructions for working with the body's energy, healing, and power. Now be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, Dr. Foojan Zeine. And let me share with you what I have actually experienced and observed this week. This week, I've been observing the concept of getting a closure. Yes, a closure, which is when people get hurt or people hurt you and somehow you keep it going, right? And so what is closure? What does that really mean? Getting complete learning from the experience. Grieving over the loss, taking responsibility for the part that you had in the event, acknowledging the part of the event that you had no control over, understanding and having compassion toward the part of you that had the need to hurt someone, if you actually did something to someone, including yourself, and understanding and having compassion toward the person who had hurt you, forgiving yourself, forgiving the other. And if the opportunity actually exists, to create the space of full expression from you and the other person. The commitment and the allowance to be complete and clear with everyone around you and with all the phases of life creates a sense of presence and freedom. Holding on to the sorrow of the past, anger or revenge towards someone, blaming them, being angry toward them, and even being angry toward yourself or blaming yourself puts a lot of burden on you. So if you're holding on to your anger, blame, unfinished business, unobtained love, revenge for feeling treated unfairly, or any other ones, observe all the negative consequences that you are enduring for holding on to those experiences. Observe the amount of energy that you are spending on holding on, being preoccupied and consumed with no longer relevant stories. If they are relevant to your day-to-day matters, then please handle it and get clear with all that you need to. If what you need to get closure with has happened in the past, you can't change the past, so let's clear the present moment so that you have the freedom to utilize your energy on creating a life that you actually love and deserve. So choose freedom, choose love and compassion, and choose clarity. We'll be right back with the latest research.
Join the conversation every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Dr. Foojan is a radio and TV host, international speaker, psychotherapist, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, The Awareness Path to Create the Life You Want. She brings you the latest research and interviews with experts in the field of cognitive sciences. Anyone who loves to grow and create growth for humanity gets a voice on this call-in show. Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Monday afternoons at 3 p.m. Pacific on Smart Talk KMET 1490 AM and on KMET1490AM.com.
So a new study by a team of psychologists from the University of Rochester and the University of Toronto tried to figure out under what circumstances the ability to read another person's emotions what psychologists call empathic accuracy, is beneficial for a relationship and when it could be harmful. The study examined whether the accurate perception of a romantic partner's emotion has any bearing on the quality of the relationship and the person's motivation to change when a romantic partner asks for a change in behavior or attitude. While prior research on empathic accuracy has yielded mixed feelings and mixed findings, the new study shows that couples who accurately perceive appeasement emotions, such as embarrassment, have better relationships than those accurately perceiving dominance emotions, such as anger or contempt. The perception may be on the part of the person requesting the change or the person receiving the request. The team zeroed in on how accurately this varying different types of emotions affect relationships' quality. If you accurately perceive threatening displays from your partner, it can shake your confidence in the relationship. Why is the ability to change so important for a partnership? Even in the best relationships, partners invariably experience conflict. One way to tackle conflict, researchers argue, is to ask a partner to change by, for example, spending less money, losing weight, making changes to a couple's sex life, or resetting their goals. Yet requesting such a personal and sometimes threatening changes can elicit negative emotions and put a strain on the relationship. That is why figuring out how best to navigate emotionally charged situations is crucial, maintaining a healthy relationship. If you are appeasing with your partner or feel embarrassed or bashful, and your partner accurately picks up on these, it can signal to you that your partner that you care about their feelings and recognize a change request might be hurtful. Or if your partner is angry or contemptuous, what we call dominance emotion, that signals very different negative emotion that may hurt a partner if they accurately perceive it. The team discovered that the type of negative emotions detected matters. If you read in your partner's expression softer emotions such as sadness, shame, or embarrassment, you generally enjoy a strong relationship. One possible reason is that these so-called appeasement emotions are read as signals of concern for the partner's feelings. In contrast, and contrary to the researchers' original hypothesis, simply feeling anger or contempt, emotions that signal blame and defensiveness rather than accurately reading those emotions in the partner, may be socially destructive in the relationship. The team found that if even just one partner felt angry or displayed contempt, the quality of the relationship tanked, regardless of whether the other person's ability to read emotion was spot on or completely missed the mark. They think reading emotions allows partners to coordinate what they do and say to each other, and perhaps that is helpful when appeasement emotions are read, but not when anger emotions are read. Anger seems to overpower any effect of reading emotions, which is consistent with lots of research findings on how anger harms relationships. Yet, regardless of how well a person was able to decipher a partner's emotions, accuracy did not increase motivation to heed the partner's request for change. So, the direct communication apparently is the key. For the study, the researchers asked 111 couples who had been dating for an average of 3 years to discuss in a lab setting an aspect that they wanted their partners to change, such as particular behaviors, personal characteristics, or how they controlled their temper. The research team then switched the roles of those making the request and those who were asked to change. Afterward, the participants rated their own emotions and perceptions of their partner's emotion, the relationship quality, and their motivation to heed those change requests. Expressing and perceiving emotions is, of course, important for making connections and deriving satisfactions in the relationship. But in order to really propel your partner to change, you may need to use more direct communication about exactly what kind of change you're hoping for. Research has shown that direct communication, whether positive or negative, is more likely to lead to change in the long run. That said, the emotional tone you take when you ask your partner for a change is so important. It's not bad to feel a little bashful or embarrassed when raising these issues, because it signals your partner that you care, and it's valuable for your partner to see that. You acknowledge that what you raise may hurt their feelings. It shows that you are invested, that you are committed to having their conversation and committed to not hurting them. And the extent to which this is noted by your partner may foster a more positive relationship. So don't go anywhere. We're going to come back and tell you about ECT app.
Are you afraid? Are you getting panic attacks? Are you getting bored and can't stand it anymore at your home? Are you finding yourself in a bind with a relationship at home? Are you wondering what all of the fuss is? And are you determined to guard yourself against all others? Or worried about how am I going to pay my rent or mortgage? In respect to the coronavirus stress, I'm offering a sliding scale online psychotherapy for anyone in California and life coaching to anyone in the world who's suffering financially. Please connect with me at Foojan.com, Foojan.com.
Join the conversation every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Dr. Foojan is a radio and TV host, international speaker, psychotherapist, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, The Awareness Path to Create the Life You Want. She brings you the latest research and interviews with experts in the field of cognitive sciences. Anyone who loves to grow and create growth for humanity gets a voice on this call-in show. Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Monday afternoons at 3 p.m. Pacific on Smart Talk KMET 1490 AM and on KMET1490am.com.
Have you ever wished you could just wake up one day, reach across your nightstand, and hit the life reset button? Let's face it, the struggles and frustrations of everyday life leave millions of women and men around the globe yearning for a new way. And the new way is right here in Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine. You can get it now at Foojan.com or Amazon.com. Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want. You deserve it.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I have Robert Moylan with me. He is the author of Emotional Core Therapy, 7 books about that, and he just released his app, ECT, today. So he called, I got excited, I wanted him here, I wanted everybody to know about his app. So welcome to my show.
Thank you, Dr. Zeine. It's wonderful to be here. It's a privilege to be here, just like last time I was on your show.
Yes, and for everyone who wants to go back to our conversation, go to my YouTube channel, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and you will find our conversation with Robert Moylan. But really quick, tell me about the app, ECT. What does it do?
Okay, it was launched today. It's on the App Store, Google Play Store. Just Google ECT app and it'll come right up. Basically, it's the simplest, most effective psychological approach available worldwide to process any stress you have, like depression, anxiety, addictions, anger, sports psychology, marital therapy, etc. I look at it like maybe talking to your girlfriend or boyfriend. It's what my passion is helping young people. I have 3 books for teens, but I want young people to learn to process their emotions and not be afraid to handle whatever comes their way, whatever the worst thing they're feeling, to talk about it. So the 4 emotions are joy, grief, fear, relief. You can process them right on my app, on my 8-step process, which is wonderful. One of the best things about this app is, for me, is my passion is addictions. I've probably done over 1,200 cases of addictions, treatment, high levels, significant level, different varied levels. With this app, the second step allows you to go onto Google, cut and paste, like say nicotine for cigarettes or methadone or heroin. What's in these ingredients? That's the second step. What you do is you search the internet for it, and you go back onto the app, place it in step 2, and then step 4 is how do you feel about it, And so what happens is you can monitor how you feel when you're taking these drugs, which is just fascinating. So most people, they realize this feels horrible. There's only 4 emotions in life: joy, grief, fear, relief. They're the navigation tool. We want joy and relief. We don't want grief and fear. So when patients feel that they have grief and fear, they can start to change. The analogy I use is putting your hand on a stove. If you put your hand on a stove, you don't do it again, right? Everybody knows that when you're a kid, right? So why do bad relationships? The power of this is the autonomy you have, that you realize, what, in life going forward, I'm going to choose healthy relationships that bring me joy and relief, and stay away from those that bring me grief and fear.
Beautiful. Where can they find the app? In any of the app? Is it the app store of the Apple, and then they can find in other places too?
It's a good point. Right now I have it on the Android phone, not on the iPhone, but I'm working on it on the iPhone in the next couple of months. So it's on the app, the Android version is on the Google Play Store and the Apple Store, basically both of them, which is where you get the apps from. Which is wonderful. Yeah.
Beautiful. So everyone, please go to the App Store and get the ECT app and regulate your emotion very, very clearly and free. That's the best side of it. It's free.
And one more thing, it's like entering data in the computer. You just put your stress in the computer and you get back to a peaceful state of being, like mindfulness or spirituality. So there's really 7 steps to the process. You just get used to this, And so what happens is, any stress you're feeling, like, hey, this is my go-to. I hit a bad golf shot. I have a bad girlfriend, a bad boss. I talk it out through the app, release it, and then I go forward in life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time and being on our show. And wonderful. Good luck with the app. And thank you for creating it for the rest of us. Everyone, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our guest.
Have you ever wished you could just wake up one day, reach across your nightstand, and hit the life reset button? Let's face it, the struggles and frustrations of everyday life leave millions of women and men around the globe yearning for a new way. And the new way is right here in Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want, by Dr. Foojan Zeine. You can get it now at Foojan.com or Amazon.com. Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want. You deserve it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I am excited to have Dr. Bradley Nelson with us. He is a holistic physician and is one of the world's foremost experts on natural method of achieving wellness. He has trained thousands of certified practitioners worldwide to help people overcome physical and emotional discomfort by releasing their emotional baggage. Don't we all need that? Yes. His best-selling book, The Emotion Code, provides step-by-step instructions for working with the body's energy healing. Welcome to the show, Dr. Nelson.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's really great to be here.
Absolutely. I love the book, and I have 100,000 questions from you.
Okay.
I looked at this, this book has a lot of value, not only about explaining, but also giving a lot of specific treatment tools and with pictures. So you don't even have to get confused because you actually see what the treatment is. So thank you. Thank you for putting all of that.
Thank you for noticing. The book is a how-to book. It's supposed to teach you how to do this, how to release your own emotional baggage. So that's why it's simple and it has pictures and yeah.
Dr. Nelson, when you talk about trapped emotion, and your book is called The Emotion Code. So you start with talking about trapped emotion. So let's share based on your knowledge of how do emotions get trapped? What is it that you call trapped emotion?
Well, you first of all have to understand what the body is. And sometimes we forget about this, but quantum physicists have been telling us for many, many years that the body itself is really just a very complex energy field. And they find that from the experiments they've done, they're telling us that the body is about 99.999999999% empty space, right? And so our bodies are just these energy fields. So when you're feeling an intense emotion, like you're really feeling angry or resentful or depressed, or you're really deep in grief, what happens is on a quantum level, that emotion that you're feeling is a vibrational frequency. It's a vibrational energy. And sometimes when you're really feeling that emotion very powerfully, all the quantum particles in your body can be vibrating now a little bit at that frequency. Sometimes that energy is too much to take. And so when that emotion is too big, or you can't deal with it and you swallow that emotion, or you bury it somehow, the energy of that emotion becomes trapped in the body. And we call it a trapped emotion. It's literally a ball of energy from about the size of a baseball to maybe the size of a softball. And what these energies do is they inhabit our physical bodies then, our energy bodies, and they distort the normal energy field that is what our body really is. And so when you distort the energy field that is what our body is really made of, you're ultimately distorting and interfering with the physical tissues and their expression of life themselves. And so when we come along and we remove that emotional energy, then suddenly that distorting force is no longer there, and that part of the body then is free to express its life in the fullest way. So what we find is that these emotional energies, these trapped emotions, are literally our emotional baggage, if you will, that we talk about sometimes. And they not only have these physical effects on us, but they also have mental and emotional effects, because what they do is they make it easier for a person to feel those emotions more readily and more easily. To give you an example of this, go ahead.
Yeah, I have more questions now. So when you talk about emotions being a form of energy and it becomes dense and then kind of becomes like a ball of energy, are you also suggesting that, for example, thoughts are electrical waves and then emotions are like electrical magnetic? Is that what you're sharing with us? What is it? What type of energy is it that it consumes itself in that? Because obviously, you know, from a psychologist's perspective, emotions and thought process come together somehow. So in every emotion, there's a thought process that lays in with all the thoughts of the emotions are happening. Right. But they have a different kind of an energy, like a thought process on an emotional base. They have a different type of it. So when you say that it's an energy, can you share with us what type of an energy is it?
Sure. Well, if you think about it, everything is ultimately made of energy. I mean, if you look at your hand looks pretty solid, but if you were to put it under an electron microscope at about 1 million power magnification, you might find an individual atom in there. And if you look inside that atom, you see there's really nothing there, just empty space and some infinitesimally tiny energies that are zipping around at the speed of light that we may refer to as particles, but that have both a wave and a particle nature, right? And so what quantum physicists say is that there really is no matter as such. All matter is just energy that is vibrating in a particular frequency that enables us to see it and for it to have mass and so on. So if you think about, for example, thought, we know that thought can actually perform work by itself, and they prove that in those studies in Japan. So there's more going on than what we think of, and you have to step outside of the normal models and go to the quantum physics model entirely to be able to understand the emotion code and how it works. Because normally we don't think of thought, we don't think of emotion as being energy so much, but in reality, everything is frequency, everything is energy. And so for example, when you have a thought, well, what is that really? We talk about that being electrochemical process and so on, but there's a whole other side of it, and that is the energetic side. And so this really goes back to Chinese medicine, going back thousands of years, when they cataloged all the different emotions and connected them up in the 5-element theory and so on. And so anyway, what we find is that these emotional energies are affecting us in huge ways. Let me give you an example. There was a man that came into me many years ago, thought he was, he was having really severe back pain. It was a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. And I tested him and found that he had a trapped emotion that was contributing to this problem. And the emotion was anger. And when we find things like this, the way that we find these is we use muscle testing to access all the information that's in this database of the subconscious mind, which actually is running all the parts of the body and knows everything that's going on. Anyway, this had occurred 20 years before, is what I found testing him. And he immediately knew what had happened. It was a very difficult work situation, he said. And he was very, very angry back then, but he thought he'd put that all behind him and had a different job for many years now. Well, when I released that trapped emotion, which literally just takes a few seconds, it takes about a minute to find one of these and release it. So it's very rapid. The pain level went from a 9 to a 0 that fast, just almost instantly. And he couldn't believe it. He kept bending over and twisting and exclaiming, and it was like a miracle. I was grateful that it worked so well. So what was happening there? Well, when he was feeling that intense emotion of anger, that vibrational frequency was overpowering in his body. And so that energy somehow became stuck or trapped in his body, I guess in his low back. That's where the symptom was arising. So when we removed that trapped emotion, that energy suddenly was gone, and that part of his body no longer was feeling pain. But here's the interesting thing, okay? A couple of days later, he came back in to see me, and he said, my back pain's still gone. I still can't quite believe it. But he said, when I came in here, I had another problem I didn't tell you about. He said, for as long as I can remember, I've basically been what you'd call a rageaholic. He said, I'm always yelling at my wife and my kids. I got to watch the road rage. I've been anger management several times. It hasn't really helped me. But he said, since you released that trapped emotion of anger for me, I don't feel it anymore. I feel kind of different. I feel like a different person. I just feel kind of relaxed and things don't set me off anymore. And he said, how did you do that? How does that work? And at the time I said, well, I really don't know. But here's what we believe, okay? When you have a trapped emotion, in this guy's case, think about this. He had this ball of anger from 20 years before. It was distorting the normal energy field that was making up his body. And so what was going on, you see, is that the chemical reactions in that area were being imbalanced. The muscles were imbalanced to some degree. The flow of energy in the meridian system was all out of balance. Eventually, 20 years later, he's in so much pain, he comes to see me, I release it, and the pain is gone. A couple of days later, he comes back in and he tells me all this, how he's a different person. Why did that make a change? Well, think about this. Here's what we believe. That guy in his life, all those years, when a situation would come along in his life that might tend to set him off, or might tend to make him feel that emotion of anger, he would feel that emotion much more easily, much more readily than he otherwise would have. Why? Because literally part of his body was feeling that emotion, vibrating at that frequency of energy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when we release that trapped emotion, suddenly he feels different. And this is how this works. It's a simple process. Anybody can learn it. Kids are doing it very successfully around the world. And yet the results can really be sometimes quite astonishing.
Beautiful. You also talk about heart wall in your book. What is it, heart wall? What is it that you call heart wall?
Well, great question. The ancient societies, all of them that I've been able to look at, all believed that the heart was the most powerful organ. They believed that it was a mystical organ, that it had these interesting connections and powers. The heart was the seat of the soul, the source of love, creativity, romance, and so on, and really the core of our being. The heart is mentioned almost 1,000 times in the Bible, for example. So what is that all about? Well, in the West, we've never paid much attention to the heart. But over the last 20 years or so, research has been done that's showing some really interesting things. Showing, for example, that most of the messages that are traveling between the heart and the brain are actually traveling from the heart to the brain and not vice versa, which is what they expected to see. They found that when one person's feeling love or affection for another person, their heartbeat will become measurable on a magnetoencephalograph reading of that other person's brain waves, and their heart rates will synchronize. And so there's this very interesting, mysterious dynamic going on between us. And I believe now that what the ancients believed is exactly right. The heart truly is the seat of the soul, the source of love and creativity and romance and so on. When they started doing heart transplants back in the 1960s, people would come back to the doctor and they would relate strange things. They would talk about how suddenly their taste in music or food or sports had radically changed. Or they had memories now of being in places that they never in their lives had visited, or their handwriting had totally changed. And in every case, when these people were connected with the family of the heart donor, they would find out, oh, yes, that's our son's handwriting that you have. How crazy is that? Or, yes, our daughter visited Rome every year. That must be why you have memories of being there, and you've never in your life visited Rome. Things like this. There's whole books written about this, right? It's called Cellular Memory, as you know. So what we have found is that when you have those feelings that your heart is going to break, when you're really deeply hurt or deeply grieved, the subconscious mind will put up a wall around the heart to protect the heart from being totally broken. And that wall is literally made from your emotional baggage. It's an energy wall. It's made from layers of your trapped emotions. And you see, when you feel like your heart is going to break, that's a physical sensation, right? You've probably experienced that maybe at some point. A lot of people have.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. And so the vast majority of people in this world, 93% we find on average, have put up this wall around their heart. Now, when we take that wall down through using the emotion code, we have a process to remove those layers of emotions so that that heart then is no longer living in a bunker, but it is open again. Amazing things happen. People fall in love, oftentimes, who never thought they would, sometimes even at advanced ages. People have creative ideas that start to flow spontaneously to them. It really is the most incredible thing I have ever seen. And this is really the most important element of the emotion code, because this heart wall phenomenon is probably affecting you right now. And if you're trying to find love, you've got to get rid of this wall around your heart. If you're trying to stay in love, if you're trying to make more money or just create a better life for yourself, this is very likely in your way. And so I believe now that we're living in what I like to call the age of the heart, where we're finally waking up to realize how important the heart is. And the Heart Math Institute has done a lot of amazing research about the heart and heartbeat coherence and so on. And so this is where we are now. This is what we're finding, is that most of us have this wall that we've put up and we don't even know it.
So what my understanding of what you're saying in your book is that there's an energy that is produced by our emotions, and emotions are the energy. And then some of the negative, as long as they're flowing, it's fine. Like even if you have, the sadness and anger, and it's just common emotions that show up because, we're human being, and they're flowing, those are great. But when for some reason they get trapped because at one point they're overwhelming. So either there's a trauma or there's something we didn't expect, and something we're trying to resist, and we can't flow with that emotion and we can't release it at that moment. They become trapped. They become trapped and they get dense, and they usually house themselves in a location in a body, one place or two places, whether they're organs or, one part of your body, they house themselves. And then they have a physical and a psychological consequence. So the physical consequence is that they're destroying the tissues or the muscles or the bones or the organs that they're housing in. And on a psychological level, they could have different types of psychological levels, such as when you said when one person was holding the anger, they were having rage all over with all relationships. Or if someone is holding their heart back, they're taking themselves away from beautiful, loving relationships. So, and you can imagine all the different ways that it would these emotions would block us from growth, or sabotage us because of the fear that we're holding, among those. And then, and one aspect of it would be assessment. So as far as treating it, one aspect of it would be your assessment of what the emotion is and where it's trapped, and then it's releasing it. And there's also tools that you utilize for assessment and for what type of emotion it is, where it is, and then how to release it. Can you share it with us a little bit about each phase?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, the only way to really find and identify a trapped emotion is to access the subconscious mind. Our conscious mind, of course, is where we live and spend all of our waking hours. When we go to sleep, the subconscious mind doesn't go to sleep. It's still functioning. And we believe that the subconscious mind is vastly underrated, that it is vastly intelligent, and that it remembers and records every moment of your life. Everything you've ever done, everything you've ever eaten or tasted or touched or smelled is all in there, recorded in the subconscious mind. And in addition to that, the subconscious mind has a list of all the things that need to be done to help you to function at your optimum. It has a list of all the trapped emotions that you have and who's involved and when they occurred and so on. So to tap into the subconscious mind, we use a simple form of biofeedback that we call muscle testing. And we teach a number of different methods of muscle testing the body, but essentially, when we ask yes or no questions, the subconscious mind will respond through the body so that the body will be slightly stronger when the answer is yes, that's coming from the subconscious mind. The body will be slightly weaker when the answer coming from the subconscious mind is no. And so muscle testing like this has been used for many, many years, since the 1960s, and it's used worldwide to get information from the body, to get information from the subconscious mind. So what we've done is we've just taken this ability to ask the subconscious mind questions and get answers, and we've formulated it in such a way that anybody can do it, and anyone can ask questions, and anyone can get those answers. The subconscious mind is very willing to answer the questions, and so we have a series of questions that we ask, and then we use muscle testing of various different forms. We teach you how to muscle test other people by pressing down on their outstretched arm, and their arm will stay strong if the answer is yes, and it will weaken if the answer is no. We also teach a number of different methods of self-testing. And so the body will be stronger or weaker depending on what the answer is. And so it's very rapid. Once you learn this, it's very easy, very fast to identify a trapped emotion. And then releasing the trapped emotion when you've identified everything that you need to identify. We have a chart, of course, of 60 emotions divided into 2 columns and 6 rows. And so you'll simply ask, like, for example, let's say that right now, if I were working with you, let's say that you maybe have a headache, or you maybe have something else going on, some emotional issue going on. I might ask, you have a trapped emotion we could release that's contributing to this issue, whatever it is. And then we would muscle test you, or I would muscle test on myself. And if we get a yes answer, then we go to the chart. And you can Google emotion code chart, and there's millions of them online. And then we simply ask, is this emotion in column A? If we get a yes, we know it's not in column B. We have 30 emotions left out of 60. Then we'll ask, is it in one of the odd rows? And the subconscious mind will very quickly that way guide us to the cell where we have 5 emotions listed in that cell. And then we'll just ask, well, is it this emotion? Is it pride or shame or shock or unworthy or worthless or whatever it might be? And the body will say no if the answer is no, and it'll say yes if the answer is yes. So that's how we're able to very rapidly identify what the emotion is. And we don't rely on our own knowledge of what's going on with this person. We don't rely on that person's subconscious mind either, because people have ideas about what their problem might be related to, but a lot of the time they have no idea. They don't remember. For example, I was at an event once, and there was a young woman that came up out of the audience at a certain point when I asked for a volunteer. And I tested her, asked if she had a trapped emotion. I got a yes answer from her subconscious mind. And the emotion we figured out was forlorn, which is feeling kind of desolate and sad and lonely all rolled into one. And it occurred when she was in the first year of her life. Well, I asked her if she had any idea what that was. And of course, she had no idea. Well, I happened to look out at the audience, and I had happened to meet this girl and her mother when they arrived at this event. And her mother was sitting out there, and she was as white as a ghost, and she had her hands like this. And I said, hey, do you have any idea what's going on? She said, she's very embarrassed, but she said that back then she used to use cloth diapers. And one day she accidentally pinned her daughter to her diaper, put the diaper pin through her skin, and didn't know about it until she changed her the next time. And she had never told her daughter about this. She was so embarrassed about it. So that was what had created this trapped emotion of forlorn. So here's this poor baby with this pin through her flesh, crying and trying to get help, and nobody's helping her. And she finally gets changed. Well, during that time, she was feeling so forlorn that emotional energy got stuck in her body. So we released that energy just really quickly, and then she went back and sat down. And I kind of forgot about this. About 10 days later, I get an email from this girl's mother. And she said, listen, my daughter didn't tell you, but she said she's had a problem with her hip and her knee. And it's been affecting the way she walks. And she's had this since she was about 9 years old. And it's been gradually getting worse over these years. And she said, we've taken her to a lot of people. Nobody's been able to fix this. But she said, since you released that trapped emotion of forlorn from her from age 1, it's gone. And I waited 10 days to make sure that this wasn't some kind of a fluke, but she said, it hasn't come back. And she said, not only that, she's feeling this new lightness of being she's never felt before. So she's telling everybody about this. So see, the subconscious mind is how we find these things, because only it really knows.
Right. And then you also talk about, before I asked this, there was a question that came up for me as you were talking. And you said that you either test the muscle test of the person themselves, or you actually do it with your own body. So
you can.
Okay.
Yes. So basically, we have different methods of doing it. The methods that I showed you with testing different ways using the hands and so on, or the outstretched arm. But also we have a method of testing where and anybody can do this one. It's really simple. You don't have to have any practice, really. And what you do is you stand straight up, straight with your arms down by your sides, close your eyes, and you can ask questions. And if you hold a question in your mind for very long, usually 5 to 10 seconds, the body will sway forward. If the answer to that question is true, if the question is, if the thought you're holding is positive or congruent, okay, then the body will sway forward, kind of like a plant growing towards the light coming in from the window. If you are holding thoughts of negativity or incongruence or falsehood, the body will sway backward away from those thoughts. So that's essentially how that works. We actually refer to that as the sway test, and it works really, really well.
Something that I found with myself is that I've done a lot of muscle tests and have done, others have done it with me. So if other people are doing it with my body, obviously my body responds. But when I've done it with myself, like, to do this and to do it with myself, I've noticed sometimes I question or I manipulate. So it's not just from my subconscious, but something is like I start observing, and with that observation, I start manipulating myself. I don't know if that has ever happened, or sometimes I think that I keep questioning what's happening versus just observing the body and trusting the body. I keep questioning it, and right there, I find that it's still, the response is not as clear as it could be.
Right. Well, it does take a little bit of practice when you're first learning any of these testing techniques. Some of them, especially the self-testing methods, can seem kind of subjective at first. It's important to disconnect yourself from the outcome of the testing. And but we teach a number of different ways of doing this in the book, online, in our certification courses as well. So it's just something that with a little bit of practice, you can master.
But I like this. I'm going to try this with a forward or backward. I never heard that before. So thank you for giving me
you'll have to try that one.
Yes.
It
then,
works.
so that's the assessment. And then let's talk about the release. You also use a lot of your magnets. So let's talk about magnets and why magnets, and then how do you use that to release?
Well, when I was first developing all of this, I was using a particular kind of magnet that was made by a Japanese company. The company is called Niken. They make a lot of really wonderful magnets that are great for taking care of yourself and helping your body to function better and getting rid of discomfort and so on. So I was using those magnets and I was having great success. And at the time, my belief was that I needed to use those magnets. But then as time went on, I realized that I'd never really looked at other kinds of magnets. And so I started testing other kinds of magnets. And I pretty quickly found that any kind of magnet works to do this. And any strength of magnet, any polarity of magnet. It's really more about your intention than anything else. In fact, your hand is also magnetic. And so if you don't have a magnet, you can just use your hand. And when we release a trapped emotion, what we do is we use a hand or a magnet, and we put energy into the governing meridian. Now, the governing meridian starts at the tailbone, goes straight up over the top of the head. And what we do is for example, if I'm working on myself, I will to release a trapped emotion, I'll just pass my hand a few times over the top of my head, putting energy into the governing meridian. And so that's essentially how it works. And the analogy that most people find useful is if you take a credit card out of your wallet and there's a magnetic strip on that credit card. If you rub a magnet on that magnetic strip, well, you're going to need to call the credit card company and get a new credit card because that card isn't going to work anymore, right? And because you've just erased that data. And that's basically what we're doing here is we're just erasing that emotional charge. And so it's not like we're removing anybody's memories of anything. You still have all your memories, but the charge around what happened now has been changed. And that charge now is gone when we remove those trapped emotions. And so it's a fascinating thing, but I've had many, many cases where people have come back to me back when I was in practice, and they would say, I don't feel that anymore. That came up again in conversation last night, and it doesn't bother me now. How does that work? Well, that's essentially what's happening. We're removing that electrical or energetic charge about that person or that event or that trauma, whatever it was. And it's very simple, very fast. And yet the changes can be really dramatic. And in fact, let me share one more story with you. I was talking with a woman who told me this story that she got the Emotion Code book and the book on audio and started reading it and listening to it. And her son started reading it and listening to it as well. And he started practicing, she noticed, with his friends, and she didn't pay much attention. But a couple of weeks later, the phone rang, and it was a woman who identified herself as the mother of one of this woman's son's friends. And she said, listen, my son has had a severe phobia of water all of his life. And he's tried everything to fix it. And nothing has ever really worked. And she said, it's been very disruptive to his life and to our life as a family. But we figured he was just going to have this forever. But she said, I'm at the community pool right now. And my son is out playing in the water for the first time in his life with the other boys. She said, your son did this. How is this even possible? What in the world is he doing? And those two boys are only 11 years old, see? So when you remove trapped emotions, it can be very, very powerful and have a huge effect on how you are living your life and how life is working for you.
So when you know where it's trapped, you don't necessarily go to the location that is trapped to do this. You work with the meridian anyway, right? And somewhere in your book also you have that that you could do go back and forth, not for yourself obviously, but when you're doing it with someone else, to go up and down kind of their back, their spine.
Yeah.
And
for example, if I were there with you and we found a trapped emotion and it's ready to be released, I would just pass my hand or a magnet down your back a few times. It's the same meridian. We have found that governing meridian, which goes from the tailbone up the back over to the inside of the upper lip, we found that hitting any stretch, any length of that meridian works the same to release that trapped emotion. And so
That's
So yes,
wonderful.
it's actually very quick.
For everyone who are watching us or listening to us, please go to emotioncodegift.com. Emotioncodegift.com. The book is thorough. It gives you many, many, many ways of doing the muscle testing. And as I said, with the pictures, shows you exactly what to do and how to do it with yourself and with others. I think it's an amazing book. It's interesting that what I heard from you is that first you have to do the assessment of where the emotion is, what the emotion is. The memory shows up about it. And then when that is defined, assessed and kind of like diagnosed, when that is defined, then the treatment is to take a magnet or your hand and go over the meridians, whether you do it for yourself and here or you do it for someone else. And that what it does is it opens up that type of a dense emotion and it allows it to release. And when it releases the psyche aspect of it and releases it from the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me clarify just a couple of things. It's not common for us to have to identify where the emotion is in the body. We usually don't know exactly where it is. Sometimes the body, on very rare occasions, it might not let you release it until you identify exactly where it is. But that's really unusual. So usually we just identify what the emotion is, and then we'll ask, do we need to know more about this? And if the subconscious mind answers yes, it's really saying, you need to discover more about this before I'm going to allow this energy to be released. And usually all we have to do in that case is identify the age that it occurred at. If we have to dig deeper than that, we might need to identify that maybe it wasn't your emotion, maybe it was someone else and you absorbed this emotional energy. That can happen. Usually that's about as far as you need to go. And so then you release the trapped emotion and you're done. And so most of the time, most people can find a trapped emotion and release it within about a minute, 2 at the outside. And that's one of the beautiful reasons why the emotion code is so easily incorporated into so many methodologies that so many people are using already all over the world.
Can I ask you something else? Which just came up. I had also done, and many people who had maybe worked with Meridian, the tapping technique of going, tapping in here and here. And what I'm also wondering is if someone is overwhelmed, such as, at this point with the coronavirus, a lot of people are having extreme amount of emotions that are not trapped from childhood, but they're right here. They're extreme. They're about the anxiety of the future. Would the same types of what you said about acknowledging, finding, assessing, and then would this also, as they do that, would that release any of these types of overwhelming emotions that are getting produced constantly?
Well, yeah, it certainly can't help and it can't hurt. So if you're dealing with a lot of anxiety in the moment, for example, you can swipe over that governing meridian with an intention to release that anxiety, and that can certainly help. One of the things I need to mention, though, is that if you're dealing in this moment with a high level of anxiety, it's very likely that there is emotional baggage that you already had that is being activated during this time, and removing that old emotional baggage will also, instead of your glass spilling over, it will lower the level of that emotional
intensity.
Yes, exactly, in your body. So that's the important thing to realize. A lot of the time, our present intention, our present success, and how we're able to function in the world is inhibited by or driven by or disabled by our emotional baggage from our past. And one of the fascinating things that we have found is that sometimes it's not even our past. Sometimes the emotional energy that we have that's affecting us in big ways is not even from our own lifetime. It was actually passed to us at conception from mom or dad. So yes, we all have our own emotional baggage from high school and breakups and divorce and so on. But at conception, sometimes we receive emotional energy that actually might have come from 10 or 20 generations ago.
Yes.
And we find that we can remove that baggage as well. And when we release that, that can also change people's lives. And the only way you can find that kind of emotional baggage is through testing the subconscious mind. It's the only information source for that. Because otherwise, how would we know? No conscious way.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. For everyone, Dr. Bradley Nelson. And please go to emotioncodegift.com to get this wonderful book. And where can they find you? The same place, emotiongift.com?
Our main website is at discoverhealing.com.
Okay.
So discoverhealing.com. My personal website and blog is at drbradleynelson.com, just Dr. Bradley, BRADLEYNELSON.com. The site that you're mentioning, Emotion Code Gift, GIFT.com. If you go there, you can download for free the first couple chapters of the book and check it out. And then, of course, the book's available on Audible, and it's available through Amazon, and, of course, all the bookstores.
Wonderful. Thank you again for being with us. And
thank you for having me on.
And for all of you who are watching and listening, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. Bye.